And sit down. We're going to get started. Okay. Yep, come on in. Grab a seat. All right, so very excited to introduce our keynote speaker for today, Hal Elrod. I first got introduced to the Miracle Morning. I don't even remember how I got the book, but I remember ordering it through Amazon, and it came to my home, and I had sitting on the counter, just came in through Amazon the night before, and one of my friends from England had come over to visit, and so he comes in the door, and it's on my counter. He says, "What's this book?" I said, "It's Miracle Morning. I just picked it up." And "What's this about?" And so he starts reading, and I start telling him about the books. I had read stuff online and heard about the savers, and we're very competitive with one another, me and this friend of mine. So he said, "Look, I'll challenge you to a 30-day Miracle Morning challenge. How about that?" I said, "Game on, you know." And he's in England, so he would get up, do his Miracle Morning before I would, then text me. I did mine. Where's yours? And we did 30-day Miracle Morning challenge, and it was awesome. It absolutely helped me really level up personal development in multiple key areas that I've been doing for many years, but inconsistent in the practice of them simultaneously. And transform things for me. Started telling my friends about it, started telling my family about it. I started sharing it with our team, with our clients. I had Sandra reach out. We ordered a bunch of books. We started giving out books to many of our top clients at different events. And then this year I said, we got to have Hal come speak at MegaTraining, and was fortunate enough to reach out to him and have him here. So this is a tremendous message of personal development. You're going to hear from not a guy who's had it easy, but a guy who's faced a lot of challenges, near-death experiences, and more. And out of that has come something beautiful that is here to support you, to support your clients, your team, your friends, your family, your loved ones with the Miracle Morning. So please put your hands together for Hal Elrod.
All right, good morning. Doesn't matter what time of day, it's always good morning. It's a more friendly greeting, isn't it? It's like, you say good morning, but it's like, good afternoon, and, good evening. Good morning's more fun. So I have to tell you, I just did this, the book signing with a lot of you and the photo op, and realized that I need to get in shape. It's like, God, these people are fit. I need to get in shape. All right, so I'm going to start with, and I mentioned this to a few people that were like, "I can't wait to hear your message." And I said, "Me too," because I just make it up every time. And there's very true. Like I used to, have like a scripted message that I tried to give, and it caused a lot of stress, like line by line by line. And then I met the speaker, and he said, and what's interesting is I've never opened a great example. I've never opened a speech by telling this before. So, but he said, we were talking about, like, I was asking all these questions on how to be a professional speaker and how he did his speaking, and he said, "I don't have a script at all." He goes, "I've got like 3 points that I just make sure that I hit those 3 points." And he said, "I hit them differently every time." And he goes, "And I try to get very much in tune with the energy of the people that I'm speaking with." And he goes, "I'll even, I'll pray or meditate and go, hey, whatever words or stories, this room, these people need to hear from me in these moments. Let that come through me," right? And I thought, that's a way better way to do it. It's a lot less stressful than to have to remember word for word what you're going to say. I got brain damage, which you'll hear about that. But also, just it's much more authentic to me, and it's and it's fun. And but you'll notice you'll notice that I'll kind of go off sometimes on tangents, and I'll forget what I was talking about. That happens sometimes. So this is a team effort. Okay, make sure you're paying really close attention, because a lot of times I'll go, what was I just talking about? So if you look at the quote here from Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which I Googled, has sold 26 million copies. One of the best-selling books of all time, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Any Rich Dad, Poor Dad fans in the room? Wow, look around the room, a lot of you, okay. So I went and spoke at an event. Robert was the headliner, and I was opening up for him, and I got to have dinner with him and a few other people, and I had a copy of my book that I had signed to him, and it was like on my lap, and I'm going, I want to give it to him, but he's not going to read it. I had Googled, he's worth $80 million. Like, I don't think he's looking to get to the next level in his life. Plus, he's like 70 at this point. I don't know that he's looking for like the new personal development, And, but you miss all the shots that you don't what? Take? So I was like, Robert, hey, I wrote this little book and I signed it for you. And like a month later, I get an email from his assistant. She says, Robert has read The Miracle Morning 3 times. And like jaw hit the floor right there. I went, he read it 3 times? I haven't even read it 3 times. What? And he said he read it 3 times. It's totally changed his life. He and his wife do it every day. And he would like to have you on Rich Dad Radio. And when he interviewed me on Rich Dad Radio, he was just edifying, like, this is one of the best books ever, blah, blah, changed my life. And what that made me realize is how universal the Miracle Morning is. Because I didn't write it for people, like I said, that were worth $80 million to go to the next level. I wrote it, and I'll get into the whole story, but I was at rock bottom, really low point in my life in 2008 when the U.S. economy crashed. Anybody else around during that time? Yeah? Not just me? And I lost, kind of everything, and I got really depressed, and then I created the Miracle Morning out of necessity by figuring out that the world's most successful people swear by their morning ritual, and I didn't have one. Mine was hitting the snooze button and waiting till the last possible minute to get out of bed. Anybody else? I won't even ask. Right? But we've all been there before. I call that a mediocre morning, where you look at your schedule and you're like, we've all been there. Some of you were there this morning, right? You look at it and you're like, okay, when do I have to leave the house? And you go, okay, how long will it take me to get ready? Okay, how many times do I want to snooze? Okay, what's the last possible second that I could wake up and get out of bed and not get fired, lose my business, lose my family, have my children taken away from me, get a divorce, right? Like, it's a mediocre morning. And then what I found is these people that were very successful, the majority of them, and I mean, we're talking like for hundreds of years. Like, this has been like an unknown kind of secret. That's why the subtitle of the book is The Not So Obvious Secret, is because I realized that if I wake up early and I start my day with purpose and intention and growth. In other words, the Miracle Morning is not about waking up super early. It's about waking up better and dedicating the first part of your day to becoming the person that you need to be to create everything that you want for your life. And what I mean by that is, if we're measuring success on a scale of 1 to 10 in any area, right? Not just our business. Like, we think success, you often think of finances, money, career, business. But if we're measuring success in our relationships, right? As a parent, as a spouse, as a friend, right? If we're measuring our happiness on a scale of 1 to 10, if we're measuring any area of our life on a scale of 1 to 10, what level do we all want? 10, right? I never met anybody who was like, well, I don't want to be too happy. Like, I don't want, those people that are so happy they're annoying. Like, I don't want to be like that. I'll be like a 7. Like, I can do 7, right? I don't want to have too much money. Like, I don't want, who needs that hassle? There's so much, more money, more problems. Like, I'll just take like a level 6, right? So we all want level 10 success, and I realized that was the key, that these people woke up every morning, they dedicated time to becoming a level 10 person through various practices like meditation, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, or journaling, right? One of these practices. And that's kind of what led to this Miracle Morning. But to bring it back to Robert Kiyosaki, I created it to get me out of rock bottom. 3 years later, I decided I had to share it, and I wrote a book about it. But it was really, in my mind, it was for the average person, right? When I say average, successful or unsuccessful, average meaning people that were settling for less than our potential, which I think is the story of the human race. Even people that are very successful in one area, typically they're lacking in another, right? They're out of balance, or all the times in the job and their kids aren't seeing them very often, or whatever it is. So I thought, how can we create level 10 success in every area? And when Robert reached out, I went, wow, this really is universal, whether you're where I was, which is losing your house and depressed and out of shape and struggling, or you're worth $80 million and you're best-selling author of all time, anywhere in between, it applies. And if you are not a morning person, I know a lot of you you're already doing the Miracle Morning, which is really cool. But for those of you, if there are any of you left that are like, I'm not a morning person. Like, I don't think I can do it. I don't know if I can. The majority of people, 72% of people that we've surveyed that do the Miracle Morning every day were not morning people before they started the Miracle Morning. So I'm going to start with 2 quotes and 2 questions. How many quotes? How many questions? Okay. The first quote is from Robin Sharma. And Robin Sharma, any Robin Sharma fans by Yeah, so not as popular as Kiyosaki, but he sold over 10 million books, and he wrote the book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, Leader Without a Title, right? So really great author. But he's big into morning rituals, and I started studying him, and this quote is one of my favorite. To me, it's a reminder to live to my full potential, because Robin says, one of the saddest things in life is to wake up one day and realize that you could have been, done, and had so much more. And I think if you look at most people, it ends up being that. It's like they wake up at 30 and they're like, what happened to my 20s? Like, what happened? I had some big goals and dreams, and I kind of settled these last 10 years. But they don't do anything differently. Then they wake up at 40 and you're like, what's going on? This isn't right, but they just keep living the same and not doing anything to change, and then life just keeps passing by, and this quote from Robin becomes true for too many of us. And what I don't like about this quote, or what I would change, is to me there's a lack of urgency. It says one of the saddest things in life is to wake up one day and realize you could have been, done, and had so much more. Like, when's one day? Thankfully it's not today, right? Like we can just chill out for a little bit longer today, and then there's always tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, right? So I reframe this quote, and I just say the saddest thing in life is to wake up every single day of our lives to realize that we could have, be, and do so much more, and then settle for less in any area. I just came back from a dad's retreat. For me, I just spent 2 days with 34 other men, fathers, who are dedicated to becoming the best fathers they can possibly be. And we brainstormed, and we masterminded, and we learned, and we shared the best practices, right? So for me, that there's no area of my life that is more important to be at a level 10 than as a father to my 2 kids. Anybody else have kids? Yeah, quite a few? Cool. Congratulations. So here's my question for you. If one of the saddest things in life is to wake up every day, know we could be, have, do so much more, the question is, why did you wake up this morning? So think about that, right? Was it the whole because you had to be somewhere, do something, or answer to somebody and be here? Is that when you woke up? Or did you do the setting your alarm a little earlier than that so you could dedicate time to your personal development before you had to rush and get started for your day? That space in the morning before the rest of the world gets started to put yourself in a peak physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual state so you could become your best every morning to give your best in everything that you did throughout the day. And the next quote is from Oprah. Any Oprah fans? Any Oprah haters? There's always a few. All right, yeah, there's a few. So Oprah said the biggest adventure you can take ever is to live the life of your dreams. And this is my invitation. We've got about 49 minutes left, 49 and a half minutes left. And my invitation for everybody, my encouragement is to think about the life of your dreams in one area. So let me make this really practical. When I say the life of your dreams is a very cliche statement, right? And so when I talk about the life of your dreams, actually let me pause for a second. You maybe are already doing this, but in case you're not, anything that I share today or that you read in the Miracle Morning, obviously, being health professionals is something that you can do with your clients. And I know a lot of you are already doing this with your clients. I know I talk to a lot of even just like life coaches. They're like, this is the first thing that I do for my new coaching clients is I make sure that they have, it's the Miracle Morning or their own version of it, a morning ritual, and that's what I instill in them so that they start each day in a peak physical, mental, and emotional state, and then they have more energy even if they're working out in the afternoon or the evening, right? They've started the day, they've won the morning, so they can win the day, they can make better choices. If we win the morning, if we have the discipline to get out of bed when the alarm clock goes off instead of hitting the snooze button 3 or 4 times, we are becoming a disciplined person. They'll make better eating choices, right? We'll make better choices on what we eat, on just every area of our lives. We're developing willpower. Think about that. When the alarm goes off, that's life's first gift to us, and it's also life's first challenge. And it's how are we going to respond? How are we going to embrace the gift? How are we going to respond to the challenge? Right? The challenge is, do we do what's right? Do we get up with that discipline? Or do we just go back to bed and do the easy thing? So that for those first moments really are pivotal in our identity, who we see ourselves as. Is someone that has the discipline to get out of bed or to not. So Oprah said the biggest adventure you can take is living the life of your dreams. And so to make that practical and not cliche, the way that I define the life of our dreams is on a scale of 1 to 10. As we talked about, we all, I think, pretty unanimously agreed, we all want level 10 success in every area. that's the life of your dreams. Whatever your level 10 is in every area, that's the life of your dreams. And you can compartmentalize it, right? You can go, well, level 10 relationship would be where me and my spouse did this, talked this way, had this time together, on and on. As a level 10 in my career, when me and I was earning X amount of dollars, I had X amount of clients, I was impacting X amount of lives, right? So you can compartmentalize the life of your dreams, aka level 10 success, in each and every single area. So here's my invitation is that you pick one area for the next 46, and God, time flies, 46 minutes, 54 seconds that we have left. Pick one area of your life that, and maybe it's an area that you're excited about right now. Maybe it's an area that you've been really focused on. Maybe it's an area that you actually haven't been focused on, so you're feeling a little bit, you're not feeling fulfilled in that area. Or maybe you're even feeling guilty because you're neglecting it. You know, so pick one area, and for the next 50 minutes that we have together, think of everything that I share, apply it to that area. And at the end of this, there's going to be a 30-day challenge. I'm not about teaching you a bunch of cool stuff and then saying bye, and then you forget 90% of it as soon as, you know, by the time the event's over. I'm all about action, right? I want you to take action, change behavior, and implement the stuff that we talk about in a way that's simple, that actually adds to your world, adds to your life, simplifies your life, not adds to the to-do list, not makes it more complex, but actually makes everything better, everything easier. So think about that. What's that one area for you that you can focus on in the next 30 days? I'm gonna teach you how to filter that one goal, that one area through the practices of the Miracle Morning to accelerate your success in that area. And it's amazing because 30 days from now, if you really focus your Miracle Morning on that one area, and you can do more than one, but really having one that stands at the forefront, that's your top priority every day for those 30 days and for that Miracle Morning, you see amazing transformation and amazing results. So, you know, at the end of the 30 days, it's like, wow. And many of you probably do 30-day challenges with your clients, so it's nothing new to you. I'm going to share a couple stories with you today. First is, this is a picture, speaking of life of our dreams. When I was 15, I wanted to be a nationally syndicated radio DJ. Can I borrow this? Thank you. Like Ryan Seacrest, or for you older folks, Casey Kasem. But that was my dream. I started DJing school dances. I grew up in a small town, Northern California, Oakhurst, about 30,000 people up near Yosemite National Park. That's where I grew up, and we actually owned the Oakhurst Market. I lived in a grocery store. It's a whole other story. But I wanted to be a DJ, and so I started doing school dances, weddings, car shows, and at age 15, I started my own little business. My parents hooked me up. They helped me in, financed some equipment. I had to pay the monthly payment to pay it off, and I started, getting $100 a night to do a wedding or whatever, which at 15, $100 for 4 hours of playing music was like a dream come true. But I wanted to be on the radio. I thought that's a way that I could, I could nationally syndicate it. I could make it a career, And at 15, I thought it was a long ways off before that would happen. But I get a phone call one day from the local radio station manager, Larry Gamble. He owned the radio station in Oakhurst. And he had one of those radio voices. You know what I'm talking about? Hal, hey, it's Larry Gamble down here at 103.7 FM. How are you, my friend? Hey, I heard you're a DJ. Is that right? And I'm going through puberty, so I was like, yes, Mr. Gamble, And he says, hey, we want to need you to host a high school or radio show. Every week, 3 hours, give away concert tickets, play whatever you want, no curse words, of course. Would you be up for interviewing for that job? Come down to the station. I'd love to meet you. Of course, I'm on cloud 9. My own radio show, of course. So, my mom will drive me. I'm only 15. My mom will drive me down today. And so mom drives me down, and I am so excited, so nervous. I go in, I meet Mr. Gamble, and he says, you're hired. And I think I was the only one interviewing for the job, but whatever, I didn't care. And he said, and then as I'm like floating out of his office on cloud 9, he goes, Hal, one more thing. DJs always have what's known as an on-air moniker. It's like a fancy way of saying a nickname. Do you have a nickname, Hal? There's stuff the kids at school call me, but it's not appropriate for the air. And he said, well, why don't you think of a nickname by next Thursday? Can you do that? I said, yeah, sure. And I left, and I was so nervous now going, I don't have a cool moniker, a nickname. And I get into the car, mom's driving, and I'm quiet, and she assumes, uh-oh, it didn't go well. And she says, sweetie, what's wrong? No, I'm sorry. She said, sweetie, everything happens for a reason. You ever hear that, right? It's like when you don't want to hear it, you're like, shut up. Yeah, I know, got it, blah, blah, like not now, right? And so I said, no, oh, Mom, no, I got the radio job. I start next Thursday. She goes, well, isn't that what you want? Why are you look upset? I said, I'm not upset. I'm just stressed out because I have to have a moniker. It's like a nickname, and you guys named me Hal, and that's like the dorkiest name ever. No offense, but it's really not a very cool name. And she said, sweetheart, first of all, you're named after your grandfather. It's not a dorky name. Second of all, I'll help you think of a cool DJ name. Okay, Mom. This should be good. What's your idea for a cool DJ name? She goes, bless you. She said, why don't you rhyme it with Hal? Be like my pal Hal or your pal Hal, or, ooh, I know, make it cool. Be yo pal Hal. I said, Mom, again, no offense, but you're such a dork. I will never be yo pal Hal. Nice try. And I think this next slide teaches us 2 lessons. Number 1, Mom is always right, yes or yes? And number 2 is, it's a lesson I learned later from a mentor, which is learn something from everyone. Like, be open-minded and be curious in the world. You know, I think we think the way, like, we have it kind of figured out, like, our model of the world is the way the world is, and, you know, our beliefs are right, and, right, if they don't believe what I believe, well, then they don't get it, or they didn't figure it out. And one of the best things I learned when I was 19, my mentor, he said, I was kind of a cocky salesperson at 19. I started selling Cutco cutlery. Any Cutco fans? I started selling Cutco, and my first 10 days, I broke the all-time company record, and so I became one of their top salespeople, and I got kind of cocky. You know, 19, making great money, right? Like, thought I knew more than everybody else around me, and he called me out one day. He was a good friend and mentor, and he just said, Hal, you know, learn something from everyone. He goes, I don't care what age they are. Anybody learn from their kids every day, right? You know? The other day, my daughter's like, Dad, can we have a donut? I'm like, sweetie, you guys will appreciate this being healthy, because I'm very healthy eater to a fault almost. I said, sweetie, no, you don't need a donut. You know, it's just bleach flour and right, sugar. She goes, Dad, she's 7, Sophie. She goes, Dad, you eat so healthy. You make us eat so healthy all the time. We could have a donut every once in a while. I was like, you're totally right. Let's go get a donut. Not going to kill you to have one donut. Okay. So, but anyway, so yeah, being open-minded and learning something from everyone. And that's what my mentor said. He goes, I don't care if it's a homeless person. Like, don't prejudge anyone, because every human being on the planet has different life experiences. Therefore, they have value to share. They have things they can teach you, but it's not their job to tell you what you've got to just remain open and curious. I'm going to share with you, this is you heard my mom say, she said everything happens for a reason, right? And how many of you, by the way, you believe that everything happens for a reason? Okay. How many aren't sure? Either you don't believe it or you're maybe not. See, I think that where the challenge is, and I'll share a distinction here, and it might bring everybody in the room together, whether you don't believe it, you do believe it, or maybe you're not sure, we've been conditioned to think that everything happens for a reason, like that phrase, like we're supposed to go figure out what that reason is, right? And we often bang our head against the proverbial wall when bad things happen, when adversity strikes. It's like, why did this happen to me? Right? Like we're searching for answers. We're searching for reasons. I'm a good person. I don't deserve this. How could this happen to me? So I believe, and I don't think that I'm right, or wrong, but just to consider that everything does happen for a reason. However, not the way we've been conditioned, but it's instead our responsibility to choose the reason for everything that happens in our lives. And the reasons that we choose determine the quality and the direction of our lives. So for example, person number 1, something bad happens, and you go, why do you think that tragedy befell? Why did that adversity happen? Could be a job loss, could be anything. And they go, they've got their reasons all figured out, right? Like, oh, bad things always happen to me. I call them victim reasons, Life's unfair, it's the government, it's the this, it's my boss is an asshole, right? It's all these reasons that there's no empowerment in the reasons. It's like, it's because of this and this and this and this and this and all things that have nothing to do with me. And then person number 2, you go, wow, you had the exact same tragedy happen to you at the exact same moment. Do you feel the same? Person number 2 goes, honestly, no, I think there's an opportunity here for me to learn, and for me to grow and to become better than I've ever been before. That on the other side of this adversity, if I take it head on and I find a way to get through it and maintain a positive attitude in the midst of the adversity, I can overcome it, and I'll be a better version of myself, on the other side of that adversity. So same adversity, but our mindset, our attitude, the reasons that we choose for what's going on or going wrong in our lives really determines our quality, our mental and emotional state at the moment, but it also determines our direction, because the choices that person one makes when they don't feel that it's their fault or they have any control, very different than the choices that person two makes, who's looking for the lesson. They're looking for how they can overcome that adversity. So when I was 20 years old, I'll share with you guys two rock bottoms that kind of frame the miracle morning and this whole message. Anybody had a rock bottom before? Let me define it. And I think that most hands went up, which is great, thank you. But I think that every hand would go up under this definition, this context, which is that a rock bottom is simply any moment of adversity that tests you beyond where you've been tested before. So it's very relative, right? Meaning, your rock bottom isn't worse than yours, and yours isn't worse than mine, and mine's not worse. It's all relative based on our own life experience. So, this isn't the story that I'm going to tell, but when I was in, 7th grade, I got my heart broken by a girl, and I thought that was my first rock bottom, because we'd been together for 2 weeks. It was going to be I thought I was going to marry her. But at that time, my response was I told my parents, I'm devastated, and I'm telling my parents, I'm not going to school ever again. A little bit of a dramatic response, but at that time, it felt very real, right? So it's very relative to our experience, and that's why I try not to. Here's a bonus lesson that I don't often share, but I always should. But I was telling someone this yesterday at the dad's retreat, so I'm glad I'm remembering this. We're really quick to judge people based on our life experience. Someone does something, you go, I would never, that's terrible. What a bad person that they would say or do that. But I had a realization a while back, which is that had we lived their life, we'd probably say and do the exact same thing. Yeah, they were bad, but maybe you didn't grow up in a gang or weren't beat up as a kid, or, you know what I mean? And even if you were, you weren't born with their brain. So, you know what I mean? I really just think that there's no room to I think we need to love people, unconditionally love all people, and replace judgment with empathy. Because had we walked in their shoes and lived their life, we would probably do and say the same exact things, even if those things in our reality seem horrible. So there's a quick tangent, soapbox / bonus lesson. But my first rock bottom was in 1999. I was 20 years old, and I was driving home from a Cutco meeting. I had given a speech, and I had actually gotten a standing ovation, which was a very special moment for me, because as a very insecure 20-year-old, every time I give a speech, I was very nervous. And I had this dream of being a professional speaker, but thinking I probably wasn't good enough, and I got a standing ovation that night, and I was like, whoa, maybe other human beings would, also get value from what I might present, from stage. And so that's where I kind of had a little bit of confidence, a little boost of maybe I could do this one day. And I left the meeting. It was 11:30 at night. I was in Northern California driving from Modesto to Fresno. I just bought a brand new Ford Mustang, which at 20, with my own money, that was like my Ferrari that I could afford. That was like the dream car. And so I get into the Mustang, and it's a white Ford Mustang 5-speed, and it was freezing cold. And I started the car, turned the heater on, and I wanted to call my mom and dad, because when something great happens, don't you want, you want to tell somebody, So I wanted to call mom and dad and tell them that, guys, I'm going to be the next Tony Robbins. I just got a standing ovation. And I looked at the dash on the Mustang. It said 11:32 p.m. And I thought, they might be in bed. They're probably in bed. I shouldn't wake them up. And it's interesting looking back at that night's events. Hindsight is what? 2020, right? I probably wouldn't be here. So, everything happens for a reason. And so I start the car, and I get on the freeway, and as I'm getting on the freeway, my last memory from that night is my rearview mirror, my best friend Jeremy. I see him get stuck at the red light in his little green Ford Ranger pickup. And my last memory was seeing that and going, sucks for Jeremy. Again, hindsight is 2020. And little did I know what was about to happen. I get onto the freeway, cruise control set at 70 miles an hour, and I got music. I remember I was listening to classical music at the time, and I was just pretending I was orchestrating and just bouncing around in the car, having a great time. And what I'm going to share with you now for the next few minutes, I don't remember this. This is all from eyewitnesses, Jeremy being one of them, which you'll hear about. It's from police reports, hospital records. I don't remember. I have no memory of that after I saw Jeremy and got on the freeway, and then 2 weeks of my life. There's zero memory. And as I got onto the freeway, a drunk driver, a man I had never met before, and drunk is it's a pretty relative term in term. He had 2 beers according to the bartender. So probably say he was a buzzed driver, right? He got onto the freeway in a full-size Chevy truck, much larger than my little Ford Mustang. Problem was he got on the freeway going the wrong way. So instead of getting on an on-ramp, he was a little buzzed, a little tired, and he got on an off-ramp. And so he merges all the way over to the right to go nice and take his little drive home. And estimated he was going about 70 miles an hour, 70 to 80 miles an hour as well. But he wasn't in the slow lane because he was going the wrong way, which meant he was in the fast lane. And I don't remember the headlights coming at me. I don't know, if I didn't see him or I didn't believe it or my mind couldn't comprehend it. But at around 11:37 p.m., this full-size Chevy truck comes barreling down the highway right at my Ford Mustang. And based on the impact, apparently at the last minute, I think I swerved because instead of hitting head-on directly, we hit head-on the 2 driver's sides. And my airbag exploded, my windshield, I believe, shattered. And the worst was yet to come as my car spun off the drunk driver and the car behind me, also traveling 70 miles an hour. It was a family of 3. They were, according to them, about 3 car lengths behind me, and they were also going 70. And my car just, in a second, spun in front of them, and without hitting the brake, they just crashed into my door at 70 miles an hour, into my driver's side door. And instantly, the left side of my body was just crushed by the car, broke 11 bones, and started losing a lot of blood. And if you look at this picture, this is what the car looked like from the front. And, you might be going, well, where's the driver's side of the car? And it's not gone. It was in the side of me. And that's my friend Peter's shoe, who's just kind of a weird guy. And he went with my dad to the junkyard, and he's like, oh, let me put the shoe in the picture. So, yeah, in case anyone's wondering. So I'm going to tell you real quick my injuries, because I always have a lot of people that are curious. Some of you, though, may not want to hear it. You may be kind of squeamish and want to plug your ears and close your eyes for just like 30 seconds. It'll be over fast. Actually, you don't have to close your eyes. I don't know why I'm not going to derobe and show you my scars or anything. So, but in an instant from that side impact, my femur, biggest bone in the human body, as you know, I had a compound fracture, broke in half, came out the side of my thigh. My pelvis was crushed between the center console, and I fractured at 3 separate places, complete fractures. My humerus bone also snapped in half. Humerus bone broke in half, came out behind my elbow. My elbow was shattered. I severed the radial nerve in my left arm. My eye socket was destroyed so bad that this is all made of titanium. And other than, a miracle, I don't know how you get hit in the eye at 70 miles an hour so bad that it crushes all the bones, and then the eyeball is, preserved, which the doctors didn't really know how to explain it. My ear was almost completely severed. It was hanging on by about 1/2 inch. And the ceiling buckled because of the impact. The top of the ceiling, the metal, sliced through the cloth roof of my car, and it sliced a V in the top of my head. And instantly, or very quickly, I was in a coma right away, unable to withstand the pain. I'm very grateful that my body and brain, shut each other down or whatever. And I'm slumped over, bleeding from head to toe, all over. And my car is just kind of rolling on the freeway. And Jeremy, my best friend, pulls up. And it's 11:30 at night. It's pretty dark out. He just sees the car and goes, oh, my God, there's been, slows down. That car is mangled. There's been a horrible accident. And then he quickly realizes, oh, my God, that's Hal's car. And he jumps out. My window was shattered, and he looks in, and he's got his cell phone. And, I'm covered in blood, and I'm unresponsive because I'm in a coma. So as he's yelling, Hal, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me, buddy? It's Jeremy. And I'm not responding, so he assumes that I'm what? Dead, right? And but he checks my pulse, and I had a pulse. I was alive. So he calls 911. Paramedics come, and it takes them an hour to cut the roof off and pull me out of the car. They use the jaws of life. And so I was sitting there for almost an hour, just just losing blood. And when they finally were able to get me out of the car, and there's a picture of what it looks like from the top down after I was pulled out of the car. You can see where my femur, there's no separation between the front left side of the driver's seat and the car. You can see where the center console is pushed over to the right, and that's where my pelvis broke, up against that. But when they pulled me out, that's when I bled to death. I bled out, and I was clinically dead for approximately 6 minutes on the side of the freeway, and then they rushed me onto the medevac helicopter and used the defibrillators and hooked up, to an IV and all the emergency procedures to bring me back to life. And thankfully, they didn't give up after a few minutes. They kept working, and I started breathing again. Rushed to the hospital. Jeremy called my parents and told them to get there as soon as they could. They had a 2-hour drive, not knowing if I'd be dead or alive when they got to the hospital. When they got to the hospital, they met Jeremy, and this is how they found me, essentially. And the prognosis wasn't good. I mean, at first it was just I was in critical condition. They were trying to keep me alive. And I clinically died. I flatlined, if you will, 2 more times in the first 6 days of being in the hospital. So it was very touch and go. And the doctor said I'd be in the hospital for probably, or that I'd be in the coma for 6 to 12 months. And 6 days later, I started wiggling my fingers. And my sister Haley, a year and a half younger than me, she saw that. And she goes, nurse, come here. And, he might be waking up, or what's going on? And she said, oh, he's having some muscle spasms, let's see. And she said, talk to him and ask him, say, Hal, if you can hear me, it's your sister Haley, if you can hear me, lift 2 fingers up. And I lifted 2 fingers up, and that was and I woke up that day. So instead of 6 to 12 months in a coma, it was 6 days, came out of the coma to face an unimaginable reality, right? I'm in pain, my eyes bandaged, sewn over, or my ears sewn on, and I've got a metal 14-inch titanium rod in my leg, 2 screws in my elbow, rod in my arm, 3 plates in my eye. I was in bad condition. I mean, I woke up just a few days after this picture was taken, and I don't remember waking up. Like I said, there's 2 weeks of my life I don't remember. There's 6 days in a coma, and then there's a week out of the coma, which I don't have any memory of. But my parents and my sister and my friends, there was all these visitors there, they've kind of reconstructed what it was like for me. So honestly, I don't really know where the stories I've been told end and my memories begin. It's very blurry. But according to my mom and dad, the first few days I was just real lethargic and tired, and my eyes were barely open, and as they're telling me what's going on, and I'm trying to process it. And they said within a few days I started to kind of, wake up and perk up a little more and open my eyes a little more. And they said very quickly I was making jokes, and I'm a very sarcastic person. I was back to my sarcasm. And they said I was trying to sell Cutco to the doctors and nurses. And I was going, because I had done, over 1,000 sales presentations, I think, in that last year and a half, it was ingrained, the questions, the whole presentation was just deep in my subconscious. So I'm like, Dr. Johnson, how many nights a week do you and your wife cook? Right? I'm going through the motions, asking all the questions. And my parents are mortified. They're like, Hal, doctor, we're sorry. Hal, this is so inappropriate. Stop it. Not the time or place to sell Cutco. I'm like, do you know how much doctors and nurses make, Miss Mom? This is a perfect time to do it. And so I was kind of upbeat and kind of positive, and the doctors did not buy it. They did not buy it. And they called my parents in a week after I came out of the coma. So it was a week after this picture was taken or so. And they sat them down and they said, we're concerned with Hal. They said, we want to give you an update on Hal. Physically, he's stable. We've made it through the worst. I think he's going to be with us for a long time. And at that point, that's all my parents were like, walk again, don't walk again. At that point, right, you want your child to be alive. And that they said that he's alive, he's going to stay alive. And, the other physical things, only time will tell. We don't know if he's ever going to walk again. He has no short-term memory, as you can see. That should heal over time. And they said where we're concerned is mentally and emotionally. Every time we interact with Hal, we being the doctors, the nurses, the staff, the psychologists, me, the physician, he's always smiling and laughing and telling jokes and making us laugh. And that's not normal. They said, that's not normal for a 20-year-old young man who's being told you're never going to walk again. They said, however, it's not unheard of. It's a very small percentage of accident victims that they cannot handle their reality. It's so painful to them, so unimaginable. They can't deal with it. They can't accept it, so they just check out. They just go into la-la land for a while. They're just delusional. They're in denial. And eventually, though, Hal will have to face this. We want him to face the emotions that he's bottling up, which are likely fear. He's probably scared. He's sad, maybe depressed. He's angry. All these emotions, these negative emotions that are probably very strong. He's just bottling them up or pushing them to the side, and they will surface. And we need it to be in here when he's in a safe environment, and not out in the real world when he could turn to drugs or alcohol or all these things. They said, so can you talk to him and find out how he's really feeling? And my parents are, it was really a reality check because they were, I think, kind of encouraged that I was upbeat. Now they're going, oh gosh, it's a facade and we've got to figure this out or he's going to, kill himself when we get out of the hospital. Okay. And they come in, my dad comes in, and I'm laying in my hospital bed watching Oprah for inspiration, literally, and drinking Donald Duck orange juice, which I never drank in my life, but for some reason that's all I wanted to drink. Just Oprah and Donald Duck orange juice. If you know anyone that's in a severe accident, that seems to be a recipe for healing, just Oprah and Donald Duck orange juice. But my dad comes in and he sits down, and I look over and he's just like, his face is white / red, eyes are watery, and I turn off the TV. Dad, what's wrong? And I knew he was meeting with the doctor, so I was really nervous. I thought he had some bad news. And he said, physically, Hal, you're doing great. You're stable. You've made it through the worst, and we're going to be very optimistic and hopeful for your healing and your recovery. But you've made it through the toughest part. And I said, oh, well, that's good, right? What's going on? What else is going on? And he explained the doctor's concern that I, was really deep down depressed and angry and scared and sad, and I was covering it up and delusional and denial, and I couldn't face it, but I needed to. And he wanted me to talk about how I was really feeling. And so I really went inside because he was so concerned, and I went, am I sad? Am I scared? Am I angry? Am I depressed? Am I covering it up? And I can't handle it, so I just brushed this, and I really was honest with myself. And I looked at my dad and I said, Dad, I thought you knew me better than that. I'm alive and I'm great. I said, remember, I live by the 5-minute rule that I learned in my Cutco training. And he said, remind me of the 5-minute rule again. And I was like, God, your mom would be so much happier if you just listened to the stuff I've been teaching you from Cutco. I said, it's okay to be negative, but not for more than 5 minutes. Like we learned that in Cutco training. When something goes wrong, you set your timer on your phone for 5 minutes. You get 5 minutes to bitch, moan, complain, kick something, cry, like feel the emotion. But after 5 minutes, we were taught there's no value as a human being in dwelling on something that is in the past. Even if it's only 5 minutes in the past, unless you're Marty McFly with a DeLorean, you can't change it. So if you can't change it, the only intelligent choice we have as human beings that want to be happy is to accept it, make peace, be at peace with it, and focus on what we can control. And my dad said, got it, Hal, but that was, that's great, but that was for much milder adversity that you were taught that for. That was like customers that were canceling their order or not buying from you or missing an appointment or whatever. And I looked at him and I said, no, yes and no, Dad. Yes, it was for milder adversity, but the principle's the same. I can't change that I was in a car accident, but I can choose to be the happiest, most grateful that I've ever been while I go through this process of healing. And I said, and I've already thought through the future, and there's one of two possibilities. Number one, I'll be stuck in a wheelchair the rest of my life. Number two, I'm going to walk again. I don't know which possibility will happen. I have no way of knowing. I can be hopeful, I can be optimistic, but I really no way of knowing. Doctors might be right, and I never walk again. I said, but here's what I've decided, and it's very freeing. It's very empowering. If I am in a wheelchair the rest of my life, Dad, I promise you, I will be the happiest person you've ever seen in a wheelchair. Because I'm in a wheelchair, either way, I can either be a miserable victim in my wheelchair for the rest of my life, or I can be the happiest, most grateful, positive person who's brightening up people's days for the rest of my life. It has nothing to do with the wheelchair. All it is that I accept what happened to me. I don't put any energy into wishing it didn't happen to me because that would be futile. There's no wishing and wanting it to be different when it can't be different. Doesn't make it different. It just causes emotional pain for me. Just makes me feel all the things the doctor said I should feel. Sad, mad, angry, depressed. Why did this happen to me? I don't deserve this. I had so many plans that didn't involve, right? Like, and here's kind of a summary of what I didn't articulate it this well at the time, but to the degree that we resist our reality is the degree that we create emotional pain for ourselves. Think about that. When you go, God, no, that wasn't supposed to happen. That's right. Whether it's losing a loved one or losing a job or losing a client or whether it's a major thing or a minor thing like traffic. Who doesn't like traffic? Raise your hand. Okay, this is why I came here. So, but in all seriousness, I share this every time. So there are some things I share every time. But this example, this analogy to me is so powerful because it's very simple. We can all relate to it, but it's very profound. It's a metaphor for life, and that is this. Let's pretend we left the house late. Anyone ever done that? Right? You woke up late. You didn't hear your alarm. You forgot to set your alarm. You were just running late. It was someone else's fault, which is always a good scapegoat. If we could blame it on somebody else, that's always good. But think about that. So we leave the house 15 minutes late. If we go full speed and there's no traffic, we're already going to be probably a few minutes late. And then we hit bumper to bumper, dead, still traffic. We've all been there, right? And think about our typical experience for let's say instead of 15 minutes in the car, now we're in for 30 minutes because of this traffic. So think about how we spend that 30 minutes. No, it starts out with, oh, no, not today of all days. What is that? Like, it's the traffic's fault that we left late that day? No, not today. Come on. And we're mad at the traffic, And then we're the whole time we're riding the bumper. Like, does anybody find that works? Like, if you ride it hard enough and you get frustrated enough, like they're just like, whoa, that guy's really mad. Let's just get out of his way and let him go to work. No. So here's what I realized. I hit traffic and go, oh, and then I go, wait a minute. I'm going to be in the car for 30 minutes. I'm in traffic. I'm going to be late. There's a consequence. I cannot change any of those things. But I get to choose how I spend these 30 minutes. I can either spend them stressed out, frustrated, literally shortening my lifespan. You're all health professionals, right? Stress is the right? They say what number one killer. So I can either spend time in traffic shortening my lifespan, causing myself stress, being frustrated, or I can either be stressed out for 30 minutes, or I can be blissed out for 30 minutes. Either one. Totally up to me, nothing to do with the traffic. And when I realized that, it was arguably one of the most empowering things I ever learned was that every negative emotion that we've ever felt is self-created by our resistance to the thing that we think is causing the emotion. Because it's not the thing, it's our resistance. If we resist it a little, it creates a negative emotion like annoyance. Not too bad, not too painful, like, oh, gosh darn it, I really didn't want that to happen, son of a gun, right? It's a little bit of resistance, not painful. But when you're, dropping to your knees going, how could you take him, Lord? How could you take her, Lord? How could this happen? How could I lose my job, my income, right? That degree of resistance creates terrible emotional pain. And you think about every negative emotion that we felt, not only is it self-created, but it's created based on something that already happened. Think about that. Rarely, now fear is a negative emotion, right? You call it negative. That's really projected in the future. But almost every other negative emotion, regret, sadness, anger, depression, it's all based on something that already happened. So it's not happening anymore. So then how are we feeling emotional pain? We think it's the thing, it's our resistance. Something happened, a lot of us have suffered from things that happened in our childhood. We're still suffering because we haven't been willing to accept it. And often we justify non-acceptance because we have this weird thing where we think that accepting it makes it okay. But it doesn't make it okay for them. I can't accept what she did to me is wrong. What he did to me is, no one should ever have to go through that. I will never accept that. But accepting doesn't let them off the hook. They're already off the hook. They don't know that we're still feeling pain over it. They've been off the hook since it's been done. It's acceptance doesn't let them off the hook, it lets us off the hook. It allows us to feel peace. And the reason I share this, by the way, you might realize we haven't got into the Miracle Morning yet. Partly because y'all have the book, so I don't need to give you guys a super in-depth thing. But the other reason is because this is arguably the most important lesson I've learned in my life, because everything that we do, everything we're doing, we're trying to strive to achieve every day. Everyone in this room is a success-minded, probably a lot of type A's, right, personality. Every day we're trying to accomplish, improve, and grow our wealth, our business, etc. And ultimately, when you look at why we're doing it, it's all this, we're looking for some sort of emotional response, some sort of fulfillment, we're looking for happiness, right? And what I found is that until we understand that we must accept all the things that we can't change, until we do that, all that resistance of all the things that we can't change, whether it was from 5 minutes ago or 5 months or 5 years or 5 decades, it fills us up with negative emotion. And all the things we're working so hard for, we don't actually get to ever enjoy them because there's no space. The joy that we might feel from an accomplishment, there's no space for it to fill us up. So then we focus, so it doesn't work. I achieved it. It doesn't feel the way I thought it would feel. I better go achieve something else. I better go create more. Oh, I got to a certain level of wealth. It was exciting, we celebrated at dinner, but now what? Got to do something else. And I really believe this is the most important fundamental lesson that I've ever learned that has given freedom from emotional pain. And to wrap up this story, so we can segue into the Miracle Morning, I accepted fully what had happened to me. So there was no emotional pain. If I never walked again, I was okay with that. If I walked again, I was more than okay with that. I was excited about that. Right? And here's the thing, by the way, one last distinction is that acceptance doesn't mean happiness. It means peace, which is much more powerful. What's the difference? Over here are all the positive emotions that we're striving for. Happiness, excitement, joy, right? Over here are all the negative emotions that we're trying to stay away from. But who's ever been in a really great mood, like you're experiencing some of these emotions, and a phone call changes that? Right? Like in a sec, emotions are fleeting. In 1 second, you can flip from one to the other. You're like, oh, life's great. What? No, what? It's like, so emotions are fleeting. But here's the deal. When you accept, I'm going to give you some tangibles on how to do this, some practical actionables, but when you accept everything you can't change, in between happiness and sadness is peace. And that's what acceptance gives you. It gives you an unwavering state of peace. Peace is rooted. It doesn't waver. If somebody gives you a phone call and says, hey, this bad thing happened, you're like, well, I can't change it, so I accept it. And you just stay in a state of peace. And when you're in a state of peace, it's like a blank canvas, and you get to decide what emotions you want. When I'm in traffic, instead of getting frustrated, when I'm frustrated, there's no space for happiness or joy or anything. But as soon as you go, I can't change it. I'm in the traffic for half an hour. I'm just going to be at peace with it, and I'm late. I'll deal with that when I get there. But right now, I'll be present and at peace. Then I get to go, I've got 30 minutes. What do I want to feel right now? What do I want to feel? What do I want to think? What do I want to do? Maybe I'll focus on my goals. Maybe I'll do some planning. Maybe I'll just focus on what I'm grateful for. I used to call my car the gratitude mobile. As a reminder to just every time I hit traffic, just go, what am I grateful for? Like, that's the question. What am I grateful for? And I just felt grateful for 30 minutes. Much better way to spend in traffic. One thing I was grateful for is I'm like, hey, the odds of getting in a head-on collision and dying at 2 miles an hour are very, very, very nil. So I don't have a graph to show you that accepting what you can't change and all this positive thinking, I don't think it solves all your problems. We could sit here and think about our bank accounts growing. Probably wouldn't happen, right? So it doesn't solve all of our problems, positive thinking, but here's what it does. Positive thinking puts us in a peak physical, mental, and emotional state to solve our problems. The doctors came in with x-rays a week after. They sent my parents to talk to me. My parents went back and reported. The doctors did not believe it. They said, we'll keep working with him, get him to admit how he's really feeling. And the doctors came in with routine x-rays a week later, and they sat me down. They go, we have some pretty great news. We don't know how to explain this. Hal, your body is healing so quickly, we're going to let you take your first step tomorrow. So this was 3 weeks after my femur broke in half, my pelvis. 3 weeks later, and after saying I'd never walk again, I went, this next picture was taken. That's my therapist, Bob. Bob rolled me up to the parallel bars, I didn't do a routine. I took a few steps like this, with a lot of fear in my femur, like, oh my gosh. And then I sat down, and then after a few days, I did a few more steps, and then I was walking, and then I was doing stairs, and then 4 weeks after this picture was taken, the doctors released me from the hospital, and I went home. And a few days later, I started selling Cutco again, and that's against doctor's orders, but that's another story. But you'll see the quote there: acceptance is the key that unlocks the door to emotional freedom, freedom from emotional pain. And here's how I originally learned this, and I'll share with you the 5-minute rule. It's okay to be negative, not for more than 5 minutes. I encourage you to all start with the 5-minute rule. Set your timer for 5 minutes when something goes wrong, and give yourself 5 minutes to feel it. And when the 5 minutes is up, you probably won't feel like intellectually, you just won't think you're ready to move on. You're like, I need 5 hours. Like, this is bullshit. I'm upset still. But what happens is this. At first, 5 minutes seems too short, and then your timer goes off, and you say these 3 words: can't change it. And that reminds you, if I can't change it, I don't have to feel bad about it. I get to accept it and be at peace with it. And what happens is, after a few weeks of this, 5 minutes becomes too long. You set your timer for 5 minutes, and you go, gosh, I can't believe this happened. Oh, man. So not what I wanted. So not what I expected. Oh, what am I going to do? Okay, I need to do this, and I do this. And then you pick up your phone, and you're like, 4 minutes and 32 more seconds. And you go, I don't want to sit here and be upset for 4 minutes. I'm going to go do the thing that I just thought of that I could do to actually start turning the situation around and improving it. So 5-minute rule becomes a 5-second rule, and you just learn that acceptance is a default way of operating. That's the wristband I wore for 2 years until I didn't need to anymore, because I didn't even, when something happened that was out of my control, I immediately had trained myself to acknowledge it, and I just it was instant acceptance. It kind of just passed through me, right? Like I might do like a 5-second rule, like, son of a, okay, whew, can't change it, right? This girl sent me an email saying that the Can't Change It philosophy tattoo, or changed her life, so she got a permanent tattoo of it, because she realized how every day she caused emotional pain for herself over getting frustrated, angry, all these emotions that she thought were because everyone in her life was a pain in the butt, her parents were a pain in the butt, and all this stuff. I used to speak at colleges, so that's where I used to share this at. And I thought 2 things. Number 1, I was inspired that she got a permanent tattoo of something I said in my speech. Number 2, I thought her parents must hate me. Like, they must want to kill me. And then this next email I got just a few weeks later from another college student, different college. This put me in tears. And I'll paraphrase what she said, but she said, Hal, my dad died when I was 9 years old. I've spent the last 10 years on every depression medication that is available on the market. I've been in and out of therapy. I've tried to kill myself 3 times, and if you look at her wrist, you can see one of those attempts. She said, I've spent the last 10 years deeply depressed, and I thought it was because my dad had died when I was 9. And everyone I talked to about it patted me on the back and said, you poor thing, and they reinforced that my dad had died and justified it. She said, when you shared the 5-minute rule, the can't change philosophy, this idea of we create our own emotional pain and that we can accept it, that's how we find peace, I considered maybe I haven't been depressed for 10 years because my dad died, but because no one told me that I could accept that and make peace with it. She said, so I got that little wristband after your speech a week ago, and it's the first week in 10 years that I have been happy. And I gave that to myself by just simply accepting it. Whenever I got those feelings around my dad, those feelings of sadness, she goes, they're so programmed now, I don't have to think of my dad, I just feel them. And I looked at my wrist and went, can't change it. And I smiled, and I realized I can be free from all this emotional pain that I've been carrying for 10 years. And she said, so yesterday was the 10-year anniversary of my dad's death, and I wanted a permanent reminder that his memory would never cause me pain again. In fact, it would only cause me gratitude for the fact that I was his daughter, and nothing could ever take that away. Nothing could ever change that. And when I got that email and I read that, as you can imagine, I was very touched and realized that whether it's traffic, using this philosophy, this 5-minute rule, this can't change it, or losing one of, if not the most important person in your life, it's universal, where we can be in control of our emotions. And by the way, last thing I'll say on this is, I'm not saying that negative emotions are bad. I'm not saying that you shouldn't feel sad no. But here's the difference is, do your emotions own you? Do they control you? Are you at the mercy of them? Or have you accepted what you can't change so you can choose the emotion that best serves you, that serves your family, that serves your clients? So if I lose a loved one, grief may be the emotion that I want to experience because that's what serves me to feel grief, right? If somebody accosts my wife, I'm going to pull anger out, right? Anybody seen the movie? What's the movie? Disney movie? Inside Out. Yeah, right? I'm going to pull anger out, right? But only because it serves the purpose. And as soon as that situation is dissolved, I'm not going to stew over the anger. It'll be gone instantly because, that happened. I can't change it. I accepted it. And then I'm going to focus on whatever emotion best serves my wife to comfort her in that situation. Does that make sense? So acceptance is the foundation of all of that. And we're going to transition here as we wrap up into my second rock bottom, and it's a much shorter story. Some of you are like, dude, how long is the story? The second rock bottom, 2008, the economy crashes, and at that time, I had bought my first brand new house at the peak of the California real estate market. Anybody else in that boat? I bought it in 2006, but I refied it in 2007 when I could get more money out of it. I went from being, I had left Cutco, I hit Hall of Fame, which was like a big milestone, started a coaching business, life was great, I had achieving the success of my dreams, I had met the woman of my dreams who I'm married to now, life was the best shape of my life, and it felt like overnight, it was really the 6 month downward spiral. I lost over half of my clients very quickly. I tried the can't change it philosophy after I lost the first one. I'm like, can't change it. Never lost a client. It's a little painful, but can't change it, And the next week I lost 2 or 3 more, and I was like, whoa, what's going on? And then once I couldn't pay my mortgage anymore, can't change it wasn't getting me clients, and I didn't know how to turn that around. And I had never applied this can't change philosophy in this downward spiral. And in 6 months, I lost over half my clients, over half my income. I went from being a Dave Ramsey student, debt-free, paid the credit card off every month, to not having that ability. And in 6 months, I had $52,000 on my credit cards, personal credit cards, just to get by, just to buy groceries and stuff. And I got really depressed. My body fat percentage tripled in those 6 months. Went from being in the best shape of my life to the worst shape of my life. And finally, a series of events led me to go on a run and hear a quote from Jim Rohn that changed my entire life. Jim Rohn said, your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development because success is something you attract by the person you become. And to bring us back to one of the things we touched on when we first opened up, if we're measuring success on a scale of 1 to 10, we all want level 10 success. And I realized that day my level of personal development, which I define that as kind of who we are physically, mentally, emotionally, our knowledge, our beliefs, our confidence, all of it. Mine was at like a 2 or a 3. And that, I believe, is the disconnect for most of our society, including all of your clients. If we want level 10 success, we have to dedicate time every day to developing our mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual capacities to be a level 10 person. And only then does level 10 success, do we earn it? Do we deserve it? Does it become our just how we operate? But it's more important who we become than it is what we're out there doing every day in the grind. The irony is that who you become is far more important than what you do, yet it's what you do that determines who you become. And so I ran home and I thought, I've got to create a ritual that is the most effective personal development ritual known to man. It wasn't called the Miracle Morning. It involved 6 practices, and these are the 6 practices. And this came from me just Googling what are the best personal development practices that the world's most successful people do every day that I'm not doing. And I was looking for one, by the way. To be really clear, I was looking for the number 1 most effective personal development practice. And as I was searching, I kept coming across meditation, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and journaling. And all these successful people, they swore by exercise, or they swore by meditation, or in fact, Ray Dalio, who's a billionaire, one of the richest men in the world, he said, meditation is the number 1 key to his financial success. When I read that, I wrote it down. I'm like, I'm struggling financially. This guy says meditation. I never thought it that way, but okay. And then as I'm looking at these 6 practices, and I'm going, which one should I do? The breakthrough came when I went, what if I did all of these? What if I woke up tomorrow an hour earlier, which at that time I didn't believe I was a morning person. I didn't know that I could do it, but I thought I don't have time anywhere else in the day. I'm busy. I'm working, right? And at night I'm not in a peak physical, mental, emotional state. I'm tired. I'm drained. It's got to be in the morning. But get up an hour earlier. And I started to get optimistic and excited. I thought, this could be the one thing that changes everything. I woke up the next morning an hour earlier at 5 a.m., which felt crazy to me. Some of you it's like, no big deal. For me, that was crazy. 5 a.m., I did all 6 of those practices. I was terrible at all of them. I was the worst meditator ever. And I'm like, clear your mind? I can't even clear my mind to say clear my mind. What? Didn't make any sense. I was terrible, but that was the day my entire life changed because I thought, wow, the way that I felt, my mental clarity, my motivation, my physical energy, my presence at the end of that hour of really the very low level of these practices because I hadn't done them. I thought, if I do this every day, it's only a matter of time before my outer world reflects my inner world. And I had no idea how fast it would happen. I was thinking compound effect, 6 to 12 months of this every day, chipping away, sharpening the axe. I'll get a little better. I'll become a level 2 person, then a level 3, then a level 4, then a level 5, 6, and eventually I'll become a level, as I grow who I am as a person, my outer world success will parallel it. And I had no idea how fast it would happen. It was less than 2 months that I more than doubled my income. I went from being in the worst shape of my life physically, had never run more than a mile, hated running, to committing to run a 52-mile ultra marathon, which I completed 5 months later. And the way I did it is I put on Facebook, I'm going to run a 52-mile ultra marathon to raise money for this charity post. And then I was like, I've never run more than a mile. But after a couple of months of this, I got really, like the Miracle Morning was addicting, and I thought, what better way to force myself to grow rapidly, physically, mentally, emotionally, like my capacity, my beliefs, than to commit to run 52 miles and figure out how. I knew it had been done. I had a friend that had done it. That's what inspired me to do it. And so I did that. And then my depression that I was suffering, it went away the first day because depression, they say, is a result of not having a compelling future. Once you lose hope, once you think it's never going to get better, you get depressed, right? Or if you're downward spiraling like I was, it gets depressing because you're like, not only is it not getting better, it keeps getting worse and worse and worse. But the depression went away the first day because I thought if I do this morning ritual every day, it's only a matter of time. And because my life changed so fast, I started calling it my Miracle Morning. But that wasn't a book title. It wasn't going to be something I shared with the world. It was just every day at 5 a.m., Miracle Morning. And then time went by. I taught it to a coaching client. It changed her life. And today, over 200,000 people in 70 countries do the Miracle Morning every single day. The stories that come in. Anybody in the Miracle Morning community, the Facebook group already? Isn't it profound? I've never seen such an engaged online community, but people, the stories come in of, I just went and spoke in 4 cities where most people were doing the Miracle Morning, and I had dozens of people come up to me crying, many of them shaking, saying how this saved my marriage. I had a gentleman at a conference I was speaking at come up and he just starts crying, and he goes, you gave me my sons back. And I said, what do you mean? And he had a falling out with his sons because of an affair with their mother when they were young. And they hadn't spoken to him in like 7 years. He read the Miracle Morning. It changed his life. So he found a way through their mother, to get them a copy of the book in hopes that it would help them. And they said, we read the Miracle Morning, and we started doing it. And we just, through our affirmations and our daily meditation, we've realized that you made a mistake and you deserve to be forgiven, and we can't change it. That was part of it. So we're going to accept that we're at peace and we love you and want you back in our lives. So this whole Miracle Morning thing, like I said in the beginning, whether you're worth $80 million, anywhere in between rock bottom and 80 million net worth, it applies to you only if you fit in that category, right? So that's it. But here's the Miracle Morning 30-day challenge, and this is what I want to close with. Like I said, I want you guys to take action. I want us all to take action. And so 3 simple things. It's also, you're probably very clear as health professionals, as trainers, that the simpler something is, and the clearer it is, the more likely someone is to do it, right? There's been a lot of research and science that proves the more we try to take on at one time, the less likely we are to even get started. And if we are getting started, the more we're spreading our focus and we're less effective in all the things that we're doing. So real simple, wake up 30 minutes earlier. So this is the challenge. It starts tomorrow morning with your Miracle Morning, but it starts today with setting your alarm clock back 30 minutes. And it could be an hour. If you want to do a full hour, that's fine, but I'm keeping it simple, 30 minutes for 30 days. So set your alarm clock back for 30 minutes and do one of the savers. You don't have to do all of them. By the way, this is very common. I bet many of you probably are thinking this, which is, well, I'm going to wait till I read the book, because I want to really understand it all, and then I'll get started, right? We do that. We're like, our brain just does this where it looks for any reason to put it off and justify why that's a better, smarter, more responsible idea. So I'm saying don't do that. Your miracle morning, pick one of the savers, and if you have the book in your hands and you go, well, I haven't read it yet, I'm just going to do the R. I'm going to wake up 30 minutes earlier, and I'm going to read. Now, if you have trouble beating that snooze button, a little bonus tip, it's 1 of 5 in the book, move the alarm clock as far across the room as you possibly can. Because if the alarm goes off in the morning and it's within arm's reach, I don't care who you are. Your level of willpower is the lowest it will ever be at any point in your day. In fact, how many of you turned off the alarm and not even realized you turned it off until you overslept, right? So when it's across the room, you have to get up, walk over, and then I recommend turn it off, then brush your teeth, wash your face, and get your day started, right? So that's the simple challenge. And then the third part is join the Miracle Morning community. And it's a free Facebook group, totally optional. But there are 63,000 people from 70 countries in that group. And they're so supportive. They're so engaging. We had and not even Miracle Morning stuff. We had a lady the other day that joined. And she was like, my husband's going in for surgery. She had just joined. I was like, can anybody please think positive thoughts or prayers? It's a very serious surgery. And she had over 800 comments in a matter of 24 hours from people in the community that didn't know who she was, saying, we're praying for you. Is that a lot of positive energy going toward her husband going into surgery? So just for support, encouragement, joining the community is a cool idea. And I want to close with these thoughts. And you might want to write this down and share this with your clients when you're getting them into action. The number one cause of unfulfilled potential is never deciding that now matters more than any other time in your life. Because it does. And you go back to that Robin Sharma quote in the beginning that one of the saddest things in life is to wake up one day and realize you could have been done and had so much more. I believe this quote is the cause of that quote, right? It's because we never decide that now is the most important day because there's always tomorrow, there's always the day after that, or we can always do things later. And again, even if you're highly successful in a few areas of life, even if you're at a level 10 in your physical fitness, you're like, I'm at a level 10. Maybe finances are at a level 10, right? Even if you're at a level 10 in a few areas, I think that we owe it to the people that we love and the people that we lead to fulfill our potential in every single area of our lives. Physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, relationally, spiritually, every area striving to be a level 10 so that we can unconsciously, we give permission to other people to live the way that we live. So I invite all of you to start the Miracle Morning 30-Day Challenge. Pick that one area of your life where you're going to create that level 10 success, the life of your dreams, so to speak, in that area. And you can do more than one, but again, keeping it simple, 30 minutes, 30 days, one saver, one area of your life that you focus on accelerating your success so that you can get to level 10 as fast as you possibly can. And I look forward to being a part of your journey. I look forward to connecting with you, whether it's in the Miracle Morning community, online or offline. I love and appreciate every single one of you, and thank you for allowing me to share the Miracle Morning with you today. And thank you, Sean, for bringing me in. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Hal's going to be around for just a little bit, and then he's taking off. But we're going to tighten up a little bit of the end of our day. Our next session is going to be 50 minutes, not 90 minutes. But we're going to hit it hard, some good stuff. All the VIPs and Platinums are going to be in here with me. We're working on advanced